When I transmigrated here, the story was nearing its end. The female lead, after enduring numerous hardships, had become a film queen and finally achieved a happy ending with the domineering CEO male lead. Meanwhile, the villainess who tried to frame the female lead ended up suffering the consequences, losing her innocence and even getting pregnant. I am that villainess. When I realized I was pregnant, the baby was already 4 months along. I stood under the dim yellow light of the cramped bathroom, fingers trembling as they traced the slight swell of my belly. The woman in the mirror looked haggard with dark circles under her eyes and chapped pale lips. It was my third day in this world. In my original world, I was an orphan who never experienced the warmth of a family. But now, not only have I transmigrated into the role of a militia supporting female character in a novel, but I've also joyfully acquired a 4-month pregnancy, according to the fragmented memories. The original host, Sunin Wan, repeatedly framed her stepsister, the female lead, Suching, and ultimately reaped what she sowed. She lost her virginity to a stranger in a trap she designed herself, was exposed by the media, and had her reputation ruined. Ding! My phone suddenly rang with a bank notification message. I clicked to check, and the account balance displayed $10, 327.68. This was the original owner's entire savings. After the scandal broke, her father, the chairman of the Sioux Group, publicly declared he was severing their father-daughter relationship, shifting all his affection to his stepdaughter, Suching. With heavy steps, I walked to the window and drew back the curtains. Outside the window, the city's dazzling nightscape unfolds with skyscrapers brightly lit and streets bustling with traffic. This should have been a desirable prosperity, but at this moment it only makes me feel suffocated. The cost of living here is exorbitant, and the original owner's body still needs rest and cannot work yet. I can't stay here any longer. I've already made up my mind. 3 days later, with simple luggage in hand, I boarded a train heading south. Outside the window, the scenery gradually shifted from steel and concrete to lush green fields. My chosen destination was a place called Qingshan Village, a place with low living costs, beautiful scenery, and most importantly, far removed from the world of the male and female protagonists. Mississippi. We've arrived at Qingshan Village. The driver's voice brought me back to reality. I stepped off the train with my luggage, greeted by the fresh air mingled with the fragrance of grass and earth. In the distance were rolling green mountains, while nearby stood scattered farmhouses, occasionally punctuated by the sound of barking dogs and children's laughter. Following the information I had obtained beforehand, I found the courtyard I was to rent. The landlord, a man in his 60s, surnamed Lee, had deep wrinkles etched on his face, but kind eyes. This is the place. $500 a month. 1 month's rent as deposit. Old Manley pushed open the peeling wooden door. A bit old, but sturdy. The courtyard was larger than I had imagined, with a lush osmanthus tree at its center and a few worn-out rotund chairs scattered beneath it. The main house consisted of 2 singlestory rooms. The walls showed some peeling, but the overall structure was intact. What surprised me most was the abandoned vegetable plot on one side of the yard. Though overgrown with weeds, the soil looked quite fertile. Let's go with this place, I immediately decided, counting out $1,000 from my bag to hand to Old Man Lee after signing a simple contract. Old Manley pointed to the west before leaving. The Jang family lives over there. They're good people. You can turn to them if you need anything. Packing up my belongings took me a whole day at dusk. As I was squatting in the vegetable garden, pulling weeds, I suddenly heard a gentle woman's voice outside the courtyard gate. "Mississippi, are you new here?" I looked up to see a woman in her 50s with a round face and neatly tied back hair, holding a bamboo basket covered with a cloth. "Yes, hello, Auntie." I quickly stood up, brushing the dirt off my hands. "I'm from the Jang family to the west. You can call me Aunt Jang," the woman said with a smile as she approached. "You look like you're working hard all by yourself. So I brought you some dinner." I was taken aback. not expecting someone to be so warm and welcoming. Aunt Jang had already lifted the cloth covering the bamboo basket, revealing two steaming dishes inside: a bowl of braised pork and a bowl of stir-fried seasonal vegetables, along with a few white steamed buns. This thank you so much. My nose tingled, and I nearly burst into tears since crossing over into this world. This was the first time someone had shown me kindness. A Jang waved her hand. No need to be so polite among neighbors. Do you live alone? I subconsciously touched my already noticeable belly and hesitated for a moment. Well, yes, alone. Aunt Jang's gaze fell on my abdomen, a flicker of understanding flashing in her eyes, but without any trace of disdain or curiosity. She simply said gently, "Pregnant women need to eat well. If you ever need any help, don't hesitate to ask." At that moment, the tension that had been gripping me for days suddenly eased, and tears welled up uncontrollably. Aunt Jang panicked, quickly putting down the basket and gently patting my back like a mother. "It's all right, child. It's all right. I bought some things to decorate the house, and with Aunt Jang's help, my little courtyard gradually came to life. I used part of the remaining money to buy some basic necessities and vegetable seeds. Uncle Jang helped me fix the leaky roof and the creaky front door. Under Aunt Siang's guidance, I learned to distinguish various vegetable seeds and understood what to plant in each season, though I often ended up with muddy hands and an aching back. Watching the once barren vegetable patch gradually become orderly and seeing tender green sprouts break through the soil filled me with an unprecedented sense of accomplishment. One evening, as I was setting up supports for the tomato seedlings, I suddenly felt a slight movement in my belly, like a small fish gently flicking its tail. I froze in place, my hand instinctively touching my abdomen. "What's wrong?" Aunt Jang was picking beans nearby when she noticed my unusual behavior. "He seems to have moved." My voice trembled. Aunt Jang smiled. "That's the baby kicking, saying hello to you." At that moment, a strange feeling welled up in my heart. This tiny life connected to me by blood would become my true family in this unfamiliar world. I secretly resolved that no matter how difficult it might be, I would give the child a warm home. The days flowed quietly like a stream. The air in Qingshan village is crisp, carrying the fragrance of earth and vegetation, and my complexion has been improving day by day. In the early morning, I sit on the rotten chair beneath the osmanthus tree, with sunlight filtering through the leaves and dappling the embroidery frame. The original owner's hands were fair and slender, with distinct knuckles and nails tinged a healthy pink, resembling fine mutton fat jade in the morning light. I gently stroke the back of my hand, feeling a fleeting sense of how strange fate is. Both the original owner and I are named Sun and Wan, look exactly alike, yet our life paths couldn't be more different. I grew up in an orphanage and was sent to learn embroidery at the age of 10. I remember back then, to master a single stitching technique, I often stayed up late into the night, my fingers prick-ricked full of blood spots. Later, my works gradually became valuable enough to sell, but my wrists developed chronic pain that aches sharply on rainy days. This time, I must take good care of these hands, I murmured to myself, threading the needle. The embroidery hoop gradually revealed a spring mountain scene. Amidst the verdant mountains, a few peach blossoms dotted the landscape with a yellow orel perched on a branch so lifelike it seemed real. This is a new style I designed by combining traditional Sioux embroidery with modern aesthetics featuring fine and even stitches and natural color transitions. One Wan embroidering again. Aunt Jang pushed open the courtyard gate with a vegetable basket in hand, walking over with a warm smile. Since finding out about my pregnancy and that I was alone, she's been taking care of me like a daughter. "Yeah, I want to embroider a few more pieces to sell online," I said with a smile. Looking up, Aunt Jang leaned in for a closer look and exclaimed, "This bird looks as if it's alive with skills like yours. You could definitely fetch a high price in the city." I shook my head. "The competition online is fierce. I'm just starting out, so each piece only sells for 200 or 300. As I spoke, I rubbed my sore neck. My 7-month pregnant belly was getting heavier, and sitting for too long made my back ache unbearably. Oh dear, stop embroidering already. Aunt Jang quickly pressed down on my hand. You're about to give birth. You need more rest. I've made you some chicken soup. Drink it while it's hot. The aroma of chicken soup wafted from the thermal container from childhood till now. This was the first time someone had specially made soup for me. In the blink of an eye, the day of delivery arrived. The delivery room in the county hospital was simple, yet clean. The labor pains came suddenly and fiercely. I clutched the sheets tightly, my back drenched in cold sweat. In my dazed state, I seemed to see the original owner standing by the bed, dressed in an elegant gown with flawless makeup. Yet her eyes were as hollow as an empty shell. I'll live well in your place, I whispered in my heart. A relieved smile flickered at the corners of her lips as her figure gradually dissolved into the glaring lights of the delivery room. Wah! A loud cry pierced the night sky. The nurse placed the red, squirming bundle on my chest. It's a healthy boy, 6 pounds, and 8, with trembling fingers. I touched his wrinkled little face. He suddenly stopped crying and grasped my hand as if giving me immense strength in that intangible moment. Let's call you Suyuan, I whispered softly, nickname and the "and" from peace and safety. Upon hearing the news, Aunt Jang stayed up all night to prepare millet congee and brought it to the hospital. She held it in her arms, unable to put him down. This child is truly handsome with eyes and brows just like yours. He's sure to grow into a dashing young man. I watch and blinking his eyes as he explores the world. His features might resemble his father's, but I don't know who that man is. I don't care either. What's past is past. During my postpartum confinement, Aunt Jang came to visit me almost every day. She taught me how to bathe a newborn and change diapers, and even brought over the cradle her son had used from home, and then was exceptionally well behaved, whimpering only when hungry and gazing around with big round eyes when full, rarely crying at night. This child is here to repay kindness, Aunt Jang often said, but as an end grew day by day, the expenses kept increasing. Baby formula, diapers, clothes. The savings were quickly depleted. I had no choice but to pick up the embroidery hoop again, but the sporadic orders alone couldn't sustain a living. One night, while scrolling through my phone, I came across a live stream by an embroidery blogger. She only filmed close-ups of her hands, yet her live stream had tens of thousands of viewers. Maybe I can give it a try too. Once this thought arose, it became impossible to suppress. The next day, I set up my phone stand, adjusted the angle carefully to ensure only the embroidery, hoop, and my hands were in frame. During my first live stream, I was so nervous my palms were sweating and my stitches were noticeably messier than usual. The viewer count hovered in the single digits throughout, but I still answered every question earnestly. The streamer's hands are so beautiful. How do you do this embroidery stitch? Can we request custom embroidery pieces? Gradually, the live stream gained a regular audience. People started placing custom orders, and although the prices weren't high, it at least provided an additional source of income. During the day, I took care of an embroidering while he napped, and in the evenings, I streamed for 2 hours. It was tiring, but seeing Anen's rosy sleeping face made it all worthwhile. Before I knew it, Ainen was already 5 months old. The little one was growing increasingly fair and adorable with chubby cheeks like peeled hard-boiled eggs and big, dark, grape-like eyes, always curiously observing the surroundings. That evening, as usual, I set up my phone to start the live stream and then sat on the small blanket I had specially prepared for him, his chubby little hands earnestly playing with a colorful bead toy. He focused intently on trying to push the beads from one side to the other, his tiny brows slightly furrowed and his pink lips pressed into a straight line. Utterly adorable. Mommy needs to start working now. Can play by himself for a while. I gently ruffled his soft hair and then looked up at me with a wide grin, revealing 2 tiny baby teeth that had just started to show, then lowered his head to continue battling with his toys. I adjusted the embroidery hoop and was about to start today's live streaming session when I suddenly noticed the camera angle was slightly off. As I reached out to adjust it, I accidentally nudged the lens to the side, unexpectedly capturing an N's chubby little back in his light blue onesie on screen. The live stream instantly exploded with excitement. Ah, who's that little figure in the background? Oh my god, so tiny. Does the streamer have a baby at home? That little tuft is just too adorable. The barrage of comments fluttered past like snowflakes, and only then did I snap back to reality, hastily explaining, "Oh, sorry, that's my son," and then accidentally caught on camera. This explanation only made the barrage go even crazier. Show us his face. How old is the little one? What's he playing that has him so focused? Even the back view is adorable. The front must be absolutely heart-melting. I watched the sudden surge in online viewers, feeling completely at a loss, and seemed to notice my gaze and turn to look at me in confusion, his long eyelashes fluttering. Sorry, everyone. To protect the child's privacy, I can show his face. I gently declined, but seeing the disappointed comments flooding the screen, I added, but I can show you and playing with toys from behind. I adjusted the camera slightly to capture Anne's full figure in the corner of the frame. At that moment, he was trying hard to fit a round block into a square hole, his chubby little hands clumsily twisting and turning. When he realized it wouldn't fit, he even let out a serious sigh, which made the living room audience burst into laughter. Oh my god, so heartwarming. A showcase of human toddlers' puzzling behaviors. So adorable when being serious. The host is skilled and the baby is so well behaved. To my surprise, Ainan's appearance caused the live stream's popularity to skyrocket. The viewership, which had been stable at around 1 to 2,000, surpassed 30,000 in just half an hour. The chat was flooded with comments like granny smiles and cloud baby adoration, and some even started sending gifts requesting the little one to perform again. When I ended the stream, I was shocked to discover that this single session had gained 20,000 new followers. You know, I had to work hard for months of live streaming just to accumulate 10,000 followers. Yet just by showing his back and then brought double that growth. After ending the live stream, I picked up and who was still engrossed in studying his toy and kissed his soft little cheeks over and over. My little lucky star. I nuzzled his tiny nose and couldn't help but marvel. How are you so adorable? And then was a bit confused by my sudden affection, but soon started giggling, her tiny hands grabbing at my hair while making sounds, as if responding to my praise. That night, after putting Anin to sleep, I lay in bed, scrolling through the comments in the live stream. Aside from compliments about how adorable An was, many also asked if custom mother-child themed embroidery pieces were available. My heart pounded with excitement. This could be the opportunity that changes our lives as mother and child. At the same time, I began thinking about how to cleverly incorporate an adorable elements into my embroidery works without revealing his face. In the following days, I experimented with adding playful childlike elements to traditional embroidery, chubby little handprints, round animal shapes, and endearing baby silhouettes. These new creations became hugely popular in the live stream with a noticeable increase in orders. What thrilled me even more was that a brand wanted to collaborate with me on a series of parent-child embroidery products with an advanced payment of $20,000. This would cover living expenses for me and Anen for over half a year. On the day of signing the contract, I carried Anen and spun around the courtyard several times, as excited as a child, and then we're going to live a good life. I lifted him high and he happily waved his little hands, the sunlight casting a golden glow around us. Aunt Jang hurried over upon hearing the news and repeatedly congratulated upon learning the good news. I always said, and is a little lucky star, ever since he came, life for you too has been getting better and better. Yes, I looked down at the little life in my arms who depended on and trusted me unconditionally, my heart filled with gratitude. He is not only my child, but also the sunshine that brightens my new life. In the days that followed, I carefully shared glimpses of Anen's daily life from behind on the internet. He squatted by the vegetable garden in his bare onesie, watching ants move, His chubby little hands clutched crayons as he doodled on paper. He wobbled like a clumsy little penguin while learning to walk. These snippets unexpectedly gained popularity with the number of fans growing like a snowball. The cloud parenting fans gave in a nickname Back View Killer. Every live stream was flooded with requests in the chat. Show us the back view kill. Embroidery orders and collaboration invitations kept pouring in. And for the first time, my savings surpassed six figures. I began consciously filtering the orders. I turned down all the low-priced, mass-produced requests, accepting only high-end custom pieces that demanded exquisite craftsmanship for a round fan featuring 100 children. I employed a total of 48 stitching techniques to vividly embroider a scene of 100 children at play. The customer was so excited after receiving it that they made a video call saying it was practically a work of art. The live stream gradually attracted many professionals. One day, a viewer with the ID Jang Nen embroiderer sent 3 consecutive bullet comments. This stitching technique is the long-lost adding flowers to brocade. Where did the streamer learn this craft? This skill requires at least 20 years of mastery. I smiled faintly at the camera, my fingers dancing as a peony gradually bloomed upon the silk canvas. Layer upon layer of petals unfolded, the outermost threads shimmering with a pearl-like luster in the sunlight. After all, before transmigrating into the book, thanks to my talent and over a decade of diligent practice, I had become one of the top embroiderers in the entire embroidery workshop. I participated in many competitions and was my master's favorite candidate to succeed as the next head embroiderer. After that, more and more collaborations came knocking, but I politely declined most of them right now. The most important thing, isn't it? I adjusted my schedule, 6 hours of fixed daily live streaming with all the remaining time reserved for the little one. In the morning, I took him to recognize the vegetables in the garden. In the afternoon, I taught him to babble his first words. In the evening, I held him under the osmanthus tree to gaze at the stars. The initial gossip in the village quietly faded away at some point. Instead, there were the fresh eggs from Aunt Lee, the seasonal fruits picked by Uncle Wong, and the cheerful laughter of neighbor children who came to play with, and of us became the most beloved duo in Qingshan village. That evening, I took an in for a walk in the village, pushing the stroller, and then babbled and pointed at the wild flowers by the roadside. As I turned a corner, I noticed the gate of a house that was usually tightly shut was unexpectedly wide open. Strange. I slowed my pace. Aunt Jang had mentioned that a reclusive old woman with a peculiar temper lived here, who hadn't stepped outside for 4 or 5 years, nor had any relatives ever visited. Curiosity compelled me to glance into the yard. A silver-haired elderly woman lay face down in the courtyard, a toppled bucket, soaking half of her clothes, and then be good and wait here for Mommy. I locked the stroller's brakes and rushed in with a swift stride. The old woman's face was ashen, her breathing faint. I dialed 120 while checking her vital signs using the first aid methods I had learned. As the ambulance siren grew louder, the old woman suddenly opened her eyes. Mind your own business. She glared at me weakly. Only after hearing the doctor confirm that the old woman was out of danger at the hospital did I finally breathe a sigh of relief. I left in and in Aunt Jang's care, made some soup myself, and bought some daily necessities to deliver to the elderly woman. In the hospital room, the elderly woman sat propped up against the headboard, her silver hair neatly tied into a bun. Hearing the footsteps, her sharp gaze shot over like a knife. "It's you," she sneered. "Aren't you afraid I'll latch onto you?" I placed the thermal container on the bedside table and smiled. If I didn't help someone in need, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. With that, I handed her a bowl of chicken soup. The old woman froze for a moment, her hands trembling slightly as she took the bowl. She lowered her head to take a sip, and suddenly her eyes turned red. "The soup is delicious," she said hoarsely. "Thank you." For the next few days, I brought meals to Grandma Wan in various styles. Sometimes it was clear braised chicken soup, sometimes shrimp wontons, And once I specially made the pumpkin porridge that Inan loves the most. Grandma Juan, are you feeling better today? I pushed open the hospital room door, holding it in my arms, who was nibbling on a teething biscuit. Juan Chinga. This was the full name the elderly woman told me. A particularly poetic name. Not dead yet. She didn't look up, but the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. And what's this little thing? And then saw Grandma Juan and immediately started waving his little hands excitedly, making sounds. Cookie crumbs scattering all over his clothes. My son, I smiled, using a tissue to wipe the cookie crumbs from Anen's mouth. Come on, say Grandma, Jerry Ma, and enemicked indistinctly, his big eyes blinking. Grandma Ruan's book fell onto the bed with a thud. He can talk now, only a few simple words. I patted Anen's head with some pride. This child learns quickly. Grandma Ruan was silent for a moment, then suddenly pulled out a thick red envelope from under her pillow and stuffed it firmly into Anen's little pocket. This won't do. I quickly stopped her. Grandma Juan, please don't. It's for the child, not for you. She glared at me, then softened her tone. You've worked hard these past few days. Only then did I notice the exquisite embroidery on the inner cuffs of Grandma Ruan's hospital gown, clearly expensive at first glance. Grandma Juan, where are your family members? Why haven't they come to visit you? I asked casually while changing Annen's diaper. The air in the hospital room suddenly froze. Grandma Ruan's expression turned cold. Dead. She spat out the two words harshly. My hand paused as I realized I had asked the wrong question. I'm sorry. It's nothing. Grandma Juan waved her hand, her gaze settling on the delicate embroidered flower on Annen's clothes. Did you embroider this? Yes. Just something I did for fun when I had free time. I replied casually. Grandma suddenly reached out to touch the flower, a flash of admiration in her eyes. The stitches are fine and even. The color scheme, bold yet elegant. This is no amateur's work. I was somewhat surprised by her discernment. You understand embroidery. I know a little. She withdrew her hand and changed the subject. What about the child's father? I lowered my head to adjust Justin's clothes. My voice calm. There is no father. I had a child out of wedlock. I expected to see disdain or pity in her gaze, but Grandma Juan simply nodded slightly. Raising a child alone isn't easy. A simple sentence, yet it made my nose sting with emotion. In the days that followed, I took it into the hospital almost every day. Grandma Juan complained that we were annoying, but every time she saw and the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes would smooth out. The most amazing thing was that Anen, who had always been shy around strangers, became unusually close to Grandma Juan. He would clumsily climb onto the old woman's sick bed, touching her face with his saliva-covered little hands, or stuffing his favorite teething biscuits into her mouth. It's so gross. Grandma Juan would turn her face away in disgust each time, but the corners of her eyes and brows were filled with unconcealable delight. On the day of discharge, Grandma Juan invited me to her home for a visit. Last time, I had rushed to save someone and only made it to the yard. This time, I finally got a proper look at the whole place. Pushing open the mottled wooden door, a neatly arranged small courtyard came into view. Several rose bushes were in full bloom, with patches of green vegetables planted in the corner and a grapevine casting dappled shadows. Comin, Grandma Juan said, leaning on her cane and motioning for me to follow her. When I pushed open the door to the main house, my eyes widened in surprise. The outwardly plain farmhouse held unexpected wonders within. The living room was spacious and bright with polished hardwood floors and a set of mahogany furniture that exuded understated elegance. Most striking was an entire wall of glass display cabinets filled with an array of trophies, medals, and certificates. This is holding an I approached, rendered speechless by the sight before me. The trophy was inscribed with phrases like Gold Award in the National Traditional Craft Competition, an inheritor of intangible cultural heritage with dates ranging from the 1980s to a decade ago. I used to dabble in it for fun when I had free time. Grandma Juan said casually, but I caught a fleeting glimpse of pride in her eyes. She took the babbling in and into her arms and pointed to a photo frame at the very center of the display cabinet. Look, that was Grandma when she was young. The woman in the photo appeared to be in her early 30s, dressed in an elegant cheongsam, holding an embroidery hoop, her eyes brimming with confidence and composure. You're an artist, I stammered. Grandma One chuckled lightly. What artist? Just a teacher of embroidery. That's all. She told me she had once been a professor in the art department of a university, specializing in traditional embroidery, and had mentored many outstanding students. But how did you end up? I glanced around, unable to comprehend why such an accomplished person would live in seclusion in this remote mountain village. Grandma Juan's expression darkened. She held an in and sat on the rotten chair, remaining silent for a long time before speaking. I have a daughter named Xiaoyu. Her fingers gently brushed over a yellowed photo in the album. The girl in the photo appeared to be about 17 or 18 years old, with her hair tied in a ponytail and a smile as radiant as the morning sun. She learned embroidery from me since childhood and was extremely talented. Grandma Ruan's voice trembled slightly. At the age of 20, she went to participate in an international competition, but the plane, my heart clenched suddenly after the accident. Not even her remains were found. Grandma Ruan's nails dug deeply into her palm. Ainin seemed to sense the heaviness in the air and reached out her little hand to touch Grandma Ruan's face, mumbling indistinctly. Grandma. Grandma Ruan buried her face in Anne's soft little body, her shoulders trembling slightly. I stood by, unsure how to comfort her. A few years ago, my husband passed away, too, and I felt increasingly meaningless. So, I sold the house in the city and moved here. Grandma Ruan lifted her head, her eyes red, thinking I'd just find a quiet country cottage to leave this world alone. Only then did I understand why she had been so hostile when we first met. A stranger who suddenly barged into her closed-off world, disrupting her peace. Grandma Juan. I crouched down and took her wrinkled hand in mine. Enough. Let's not dwell on those old, trivial matters. Grandma Juan waved her hand and suddenly changed the subject. Who taught you that embroidery skill? I briefly shared my experience, naturally omitting the part about transmigrating into a novel. After listening, Grandma Juan nodded thoughtfully. The technique follows the orthodox Sioux embroidery style, but the composition and color palette have a modern touch. Rare indeed. She stood up and walked into the inner room, returning moments later with an exquisite sandalwood box. This is for you. Inside the box was a set of pure silver embroidery needles, their ends adorned with tiny pearls that gleamed softly in the sunlight. This is too precious. I quickly declined. Keeping it here would just gather dust. Grandma Juan forcefully stuffed the box into my bag. Consider it a thank you for taking care of me these days. She paused, then added, also, bring it into my place every Wednesday afternoon. I'll teach you some long, lost needlework techniques. I froze, then felt my eyes grow hot. This was her way of accepting me as her apprentice. Grandma Juan, stop your sniveling. She frowned in distaste, yet reached out to wipe the tears from the corners of my eyes. Remember, Wednesday afternoon, beyond time. Dare to be late even once, and don't bother coming back. And so I became one grandma's last apprentice. Every Wednesday afternoon, I would bring it into her house for lessons. Grandma Juan was an extremely strict teacher. If a single stitch was crooked, she'd make you undo it and start over. Embroidery is like being a person. Every stitch must be worthy of one's conscience. She always said this under her guidance. My skills improved by leaps and bounds. Those nearly lost techniques, adding flowers to brocade, hidden fragrance floating, golden dragons coiling. One by one, they regained their brilliance in my hands. The audience in the live stream grew larger, and orders were scheduled half a year in advance. Once I embroidered a piece titled Longevity of Pines and Cranes using the countless threads, technique taught by Grandma Juan. The crane's feathers could display varying hues under the light. This artwork was purchased by a collector for a high price of $100. You've made us proud, Grandma Juan said. offering rare praise when she found out that evening. I announced during my live stream that I would be taking a temporary break from broadcasting. Why? No way. Watching Juan's embroidery every day is my most relaxing time. Did someone bully you? The barrage was filled with wails. I smiled and explained, I need to prepare for the National Traditional Crafts Competition and focus on creating my entry. This was Grandma Ruan's suggestion. With your skill level, winning a gold medal shouldn't be a problem, she said, her eyes sparkling with a long-lost brilliance. Let those old folks see that traditional embroidery isn't dead yet. The theme I chose for the competition is rebirth. On the design sketch, a phoenix rises from the ashes, with each feather depicted using different stitching techniques. For the flames, I innovatively incorporated gold threads and red coral beads, which shimmer as the angle changes under the light. The creative process was exceptionally arduous. I often worked until dawn, my eyes sore to the point of tears, and seemed to know her mother was busy and was unusually well behaved. He would quietly sit by my feet playing with building blocks or lie on Grandma Ruan's lap listening to her tell stories. 3 months later, new life was finally completed. As the final stitch was put in place, Grandma Juan stared at the piece for a long time, her eyes suddenly welling up with tears. Xiao Back then also embroidered a phoenix. She said softly, not as good as yours. On the day I submitted my work to the competition, a heavy rain poured down in Qingshan village. Grandma Ruan stood under the eaves, gazing at the pouring rain and murmuring to herself, a phoenix bathed in fire thrives when met with water, a good omen. The competition results wouldn't be announced for another 2 months. I resumed my live streams, but cut back on orders, dedicating more time to honing my skills. Grandma Ruan's health fluctuated, so I took an in to visit her almost every day. Sometimes we would study the lost acupuncture techniques recorded in ancient texts together, while other times we simply drank tea quietly and watched in and chased butterflies in the yard. One ordinary afternoon, as I was helping Grandma Ruan sort through her collection of vintage embroidery pieces, my phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. Is this MS San Juan? The voice on the other end was serious. This is the organizing committee of the National Traditional Crafts Competition. My heart instantly leaped into my throat. Your work, Rebirth, has won the grand prize. The committee would like to invite you to attend the awards ceremony next Saturday. After hanging up, my entire body was trembling. Grandma Juan guessed everything from my expression. She patted my shoulder and said, Go on, let's see how outstanding her junior sister is. The awards ceremony was held at the Provincial Art Gallery. I put on the light cyan cheongsam Grandma Juan gave me, tied up my long hair, and sat nervously in the audience. When the host announced the grand prize winner, I practically floated onto the stage. This piece perfectly blends traditional techniques with modern aesthetics, every stitch and thread brimming with vitality. The jury president's award speech brought tears to my eyes. Camera flashes flickered incessantly in the audience, and through my daze, I seemed to see Grandma Ruan's proud smile. After receiving the award, as I stepped off the stage, a sharply dressed, middle-aged man stopped me. Ms. Su, hello, I'm Zhao Ming from Celestial Script Group. He handed me his business card. We're very interested in your work and would like to discuss potential collaboration. Tun Shu Group, isn't that? I suppressed my shock. Tun Shu Group is the male lead's cultural industry company. Is the plotline coming for me again? Sorry, I don't have any intention to collaborate for now. I politely declined and quickly walked away. Returning to Qingshan village, I placed the gleaming trophy in Grandma Juan's hands. This is your achievement, I said, sincerely. Grandma Juan stroked the trophy and shook her head. No, this is all your own doing. That night, we made an exception and had a little wine. Grandma Ruan's cheeks flushed as she suddenly said, "Non, I have an idea. Would you be willing to formally become my disciple?" I was stunned for a moment, then immediately knelt down to perform the disciple initiation ceremony. Master above, accept this bow from your disciple. Grandma One, help me up, tears glistening in her eyes. Good. Good. In this lifetime of mine, Juan Chinga, I've finally not lived in vain. That day, as usual, I took it into Grandma Juan's house. Just as we reached the courtyard gate, we heard the sound of a fierce argument inside, accompanied by the sharp shattering of porcelain hitting the floor. Winga, how much longer are you going to be this stubborn? A robust male voice roared angrily. There are fewer and fewer inheritors of Shuai. Do you really want to watch it disappear with your own eyes? You meddling old fool. My affairs are none of your concern. Grandma Ruan's voice was sharper than usual. Get out. Don't bother me. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly carried in and into the courtyard. An elegantly dressed, elderly man stood there, his face flushed with anger, clutching a blue and white porcelain teacup as if ready to hurl it to the ground at any moment. Meanwhile, Grandma Juan stood on the steps, hands on her hips, her gaze sharp as a knife. Sherfu, I called out softly. The two of them turned their heads simultaneously. The moment the old man saw in and in my arms, his pupils constricted sharply, and the teacup in his hand fell to the ground with a clatter, shattering into pieces. This is his voice trembled slightly as his gaze fixed intently on Anen's face. Your child. Instinctively, I held Anen tighter and nodded. The old man staggered back half a step as if struck by lightning, murmuring, so alike, little one. How old are you? He asked in a kindly voice, and then blinked her big eyes and answered in a childish voice. 2 years old. How adorable. The old man beamed, pulling out an exquisite pocket watch from his pocket and handing it to an area has a little gift for you, and then curiously took it, her little hands clumsily fiddling with the watch cover, and she smiled happily. Shiny Grandma Juan snorted coldly. Ja Shurao Quan, if you're so fond of children, go persuade your unmarried youngest son to get married and have one of his own. Don't go coveting my eldest grandson here. Old Mr. Zhao struck where it hurt. Immediately stood up angrily. Juan Chinga, you what? Grandma, Ruan sneered. Hurry up and leave. Don't stand there being an eyesore. Old Mr. Shao was so angry that his beard trembled. And finally, he flung his sleeve fiercely. Fine, I'll leave. But let me tell you, I've rented a house in this village, and I'll come every day from now on. Let's see who can outlast whom. With that, he turned and strode away. Only when his figure had completely disappeared did I let out a sigh of relief and turn to Grandma Juan. Master, who is this? Grandma Juan sighed and pulled me to sit down in the courtyard. His name is Shashioan. He's a lifelong friend of mine. We grew up together as childhood sweethearts. Later, he went into business and started a company which has now grown quite large. I nodded. He just mentioned something about inheritance. Huff. That old man has too much time on his hands. Grandma Juan curled her lips. Now that the company's grown, he's suddenly obsessed with traditional crafts, insisting on dragging me out of retirement for some intangible cultural heritage inheritance project. At my age, I can't handle the fuss anymore. She paused, then suddenly looked at me with a serious expression. But Nwanyuan, I think you could do it. I was taken aback. Me, yes. Grandma Ruan patted my hand. Your talent is no worse than mine in my younger days, and you know how to innovate. If you can collaborate with old Joe, you might truly bring embroidery back to life. I looked down at Anen, who was engrossed in playing with the pocket watch given by old Mr. Joe, his little face full of curiosity. But Anen is still so young. I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Grandma interrupted me. Old Shah may be stubborn, but he's not a bad person. Trust your master. Your future is boundless. Grandpa Zhao's eyes widened when he heard I was Grandma Juan's last disciple, scrutinizing me from head to toe as if I were some rare treasure. Old Ruan, is this your little apprentice? He circled around me and then suddenly slapped his thigh. No wonder your outfit looked so familiar. Aren't you that girl who live streams embroidery online? I nodded in surprise. Oh my, I'm your biggest fan. Grandpa exclaimed excitedly like a child, pulling out his phone and swiping a few times. Look, I watch your live stream replays every day. The screen clearly displayed my live stream interface with the ID still showing. Jang, Nan embroidery lady. I remember this ID. It frequently interacted with me. I just never expected it to be Grandpa Zao. Grandma Wan sneered from the side. Old man, you sure know how to put on an act. Who's acting? Grandpa retorted indignantly, pointing at Inan and little Annan, even though only her back was shown. I found her incredibly endearing and adored her. Now that I've seen her in person, I like her even more. And then heard someone calling him and looked up, flashing a grin at Grandpa that revealed a few tiny white teeth. Grandpa Zaos' heart instantly melted. He crouched down to tease Anan. Call me Grandpa. Okay, Grandpa will buy you candy. Grandpa, and then called out brightly, making Grandpa's beard twitch with delight. Good boy. He scooped in and up in his arms, and then turned to me with a serious expression. Shirao Su, on behalf of Tian Shu Group, I formally invite you to join our intangible cultural heritage preservation project. The compensation will be excellent. Tian Shu Group. My heart tightened. Grandpa, are you from Tian Shu Group? Oh, I'm the chairman, but I've mostly handed it over to my youngest son to manage now. He replied casually, his attention entirely on teasing and call me Grandpa again. My fingers unconsciously twisted the hem of my clothes. The chairman of Tian Shu Group. Isn't that the grandfather of the male lead? Gangu, after all this back and forth, I still can't escape the original plotline. Grandma keenly noticed my unease and waved off. Grandpa Joe, old Joe, you go ahead back. We'll talk about this another day. Though reluctant, Grandpa Zao still handed and then back to me. Before leaving, he kept turning back every few steps. Shao Su, think it over carefully. The doors of Tian Shu will always be open for you. After Grandpa Zao walked away, Grandma Ruan pulled me to sit down in the courtyard. Nuanyuan, do you know old? I shook my head, hesitated for a moment, but decided to be honest. Master, actually, I have a not-so-good past under the Osmond tree. I told Grandma when the original owner's story in detail. To be honest, the original owner wasn't truly malicious. Many of her actions stemmed from feeling that her territory had been invaded by the female lead and her mother, having lost her mother at a young age, and with a father who paid her no attention. The original host would instinctively shield herself or act out in extreme ways. Even the act of drugging was done under deception, and in the end, she drank the juice herself, proving that deep down, she never truly wanted to harm others. So, you see, if I joined the Celestial Script Group, I might run into people from my past. I forced a bitter smile and gently touched Danin's little face. I don't want N to get caught up in all that drama. Grandma Ruan listened quietly, then suddenly asked Nuan, do you hate your father? I froze for a moment, carefully recalling the original host's memories. Saying I don't hate him would be a lie, but more than anything, it's sadness because, after all, he was my only family. Do you hate your stepmother and stepsister? I shook my head. Actually, when I think about it carefully, they haven't done anything truly unforgivable. It's me. I was too sensitive, always feeling like they stole Dad's love away from me. Grandma One nodded. Her gaze, kind child, the fact that you can think this way shows you've grown up. To err is human, isn't it? What matters is the ability to recognize and correct one's mistakes. She gently held my hand. Running away won't solve the problem. Now that you have an in, you should live with dignity more than ever, as long as your heart is at peace. There's nowhere you need to fear. I looked down at it in my arms. The little one had already fallen asleep at some point, long eyelashes casting two shadows on her face, her small mouth slightly pouting like an angel. Yes, for an ins, I should face these things bravely. I understand, Master. I raised my head with a determined gaze. I will accept Grandpa's invitation. Grandma smiled with relief. That's the right decision. Remember, no matter what happens, your master will always have your back. Back home, I sent a message to Grandpa Zao expressing my willingness to discuss the collaboration in detail. Putting down my phone, I gently placed N in his little bed and tucked him in. Moonlight streamed through the gaps in the curtains, casting a soft silver glow on Anen's little face. I leaned down and planted a kiss on his forehead. Sweetheart, Mommy will protect you. Early the next morning, Grandpa arrived excitedly, bringing along a pile of toys and snacks. These are all foreign. He beamed, his smile stretching from ear to ear. Xiaosu, take a look at this contract. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, just say the word. I took the thick stack of documents and began carefully reviewing them. The terms were unexpectedly generous. An annual salary of 1 million, social insurance and housing fund, 2 paid vacations per year, and even special childcare subsidies. What surprised me the most was the additional clause. I could continue operating my personal account and the company would not interfere with my creative freedom. This is too generous. I felt somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. Grandpa Zhao waved his hand. With your talent, you're worth every penny. Our Tun Shu is eager for talent like yours. After signing the contract, Grandpa Zhao leaned in mysteriously. Xiaosu, next month the company has an important event, and I hope you can attend. My youngest son and grandson will be there. It'll be a great chance to introduce you. My heart skipped a beat. Could the grandson he mentioned be the male lead? Guchenya, Grandpa, your grandson is O. His name is Genho, taking his mother's surname. Grandpa Zhao explained. This kid is now in charge of all the entertainment and media projects under the company. He's quite capable, already married, well behaved, and sensible. Never gives anyone any trouble. It really was him. I forced a calm smile and said, all right, I'll definitely meet him if I get the chance. After seeing Grandpa Joe off, I sat in the yard, lost in thought. Sunlight filtered through the leaves of the osmanthus tree, casting dappled shadows on the ground. The gears of fate seemed to begin turning once more. After joining the Celestial Script Group, I was assigned to the Intangible Cultural Heritage Department, responsible for the preservation and innovation of embroidery techniques. To avoid drawing attention, I adhered strictly to my work schedule, attending only necessary meetings and events while avoiding almost all social interactions. My office is tucked away in a corner of the corporate building, quiet and secluded, perfect for focused writing. Yet, what must come will inevitably arrive. That day, the company hosted a grand exhibition on intangible cultural heritage. As a newly recognized embroidery inheritor, my attendance was mandatory. I chose a modest navy blue chiapao, pinned up my long hair, and applied light makeup to ensure I wouldn't stand out too much. The exhibition hall was bustling with crowds as media representatives and industry leaders gathered together. I stood in front of my booth, introducing my work to interested visitors, trying my best to maintain a smile while feeling tense inside. Suddenly, there was a stir in the crowd. I looked up. Grandfather Ho was approaching, accompanied by 2 men. One appeared to be around 30 years old, impeccably dressed in a suit with striking features and an imposing aura that commanded respect without anger. The other was much younger, with exquisitely sculpted facial features and a cold, distant gaze, none other than the original novel's male lead. Gengu, my heart instantly raced, and my fingers unconsciously tightened their grip on the hem of my clothes. Grandpa Zhao walked up to me with a beaming smile and enthusiastically introduced me to the 2 men. Ji Chen-ho, this is Sunan Wan, the one I mentioned to you, Master Wan's last disciple, exceptionally skilled in embroidery. Genho's gaze landed on my face, his previously calm eyes suddenly turning cold, flashing with a hint of disgust. His thin lips pressed together slightly. Clearly, he recognized me. Miss Su. His tone was distant, not even extending a handshake as he turned directly to Grandpa Zhao. Grandpa, President Wang is still waiting for us. Let's go over there first. Grandpa Zhao seemed somewhat displeased. What's the hurry? Muin Wan is Gachenha Kili interrupted. Company matters take priority. With that, he subtly took Grandpa Zhao's arm and smoothly guided him away from my booth. I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to lower my head to arrange the exhibits when I noticed Shou Ji hadn't left with the others. He was the late-born son of Grandpa Zhao and the true power behind the group. I had heard many stories about him from the employees. At that moment, he simply stood beside me, hands in his pockets, his gaze resting thoughtfully on me. His eyes were light, yet somehow they made me feel an inexplicable sense of pressure. I forced myself to stay calm, continuing to arrange the embroidery as if I hadn't noticed him. Yet, he suddenly spoke in a low voice. "So, you're the embroidery master my father personally hired." I nodded, not daring to look up and meet his gaze. "You flatter me, Mr. Joe." He let out a light scoff, seemingly dismissive. "I heard your skills are decent." I pursed my lips, unsure whether his words were praise or criticism, and could only reply cautiously, "I'm still learning." He stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly smiled in a way that was hard to interpret. "I hope you truly are, as my father said, someone with potential." With that, he turned and walked away, his back straight as a pine tree, his presence so commanding that no one dared approach. I frowned slightly, feeling puzzled. I hadn't provoked him in any way, so why did he seem to hold a grudge against me? However, someone like Shoji with his deep thoughts and emotions that never show on his face is simply beyond my comprehension. I just want to work steadily and take good care of an inn without getting involved in any trouble. It's better to keep my distance from such people. At the group meeting, Manager Chen from the finance department was delivering a lengthy report on the quarterly budget reduction plan. The annual investment in intangible cultural heritage projects is too high, but the market return is not impressive. He adjusted his glasses, speaking in a casual tone. Nowadays, crafts like embroidery, ceramics, and wood carving can be entirely replaced by mechanized production, lower cost, higher efficiency. Preserving these traditional projects, when it comes down to it, is just a matter of sentimentality. I sat in the back row, my fingers unconsciously tightening around the folder. Sentimentality in his eyes, those works that embody the painstaking efforts of countless artisans. Those skills that carry millennia of culture are merely sentimentality. I took a deep breath and stood up directly. "Manager Chen, I disagree with your opinion." The meeting room fell silent instantly, and everyone's gaze turned toward me. Manager Chen frowned, clearly not expecting anyone to contradict him on the spot. "Oh, what brilliant insights does Supervisor Su have to offer?" His tone carried a hint of sarcasm. I looked him straight in the eye and said, word by word, no matter how precise mechanized production is, it lacks one thing: human touch. Every stitch, every cut, every stroke carries the craftsman's heart and soul. Machines can replicate patterns, but they can't replicate the creator's warmth or those subtle emotional expressions. The reason Tun Shoe Group has established itself in the cultural industry has never been through cold assembly lines, but through respect for people. My voice wasn't loud, but every word was clear. Manager Chen's expression changed slightly, and he immediately retorted, "The market demands efficiency and profit, not some vague notion of warmth." "Then why do you think our high-end custom embroidery pieces sell for astronomical prices?" I countered. "Precisely because they're one of a kind, because they carry a soul that can't be replicated." The meeting room fell silent, everyone holding their breath as they watched this debate unfold. In the end, everyone's gaze turned to Zhao Ji, who was seated at the head of the table. His fingers lightly tapped the desk, his expression indifferent, revealing neither joy nor anger. After a long pause, he spoke. "Supervisor Su is right." Manager Chen's face stiffened. Zhao Ji raised his eyes, his sharp gaze sweeping over. Tian Shoe Group has never relied on cheap replicas to establish itself. The inheritance of intangible cultural heritage is our foundation, not some disposable sentimentality that can be casually discarded. Manager Chen, if all you can see are cold numbers, you might as well go work at a machinery factory. Manager Chen's face turned pale, then flushed, and he finally lowered his head. "Yes, President Xiao." My tense nerves finally relaxed, and I gave Zhao Ji by a grateful glance. His gaze swept indifferently across my face, saying nothing. As soon as I returned to my office after the meeting, the intercom rang. "Manager Su, President Zhao wants to see you in his office." My heart skipped a beat, wondering why he wanted to see me. Was my earlier statement too reckless? With a nervous heart, I knocked on the CEO's office door. Come in. A deep voice sounded from inside, pushing the door open. I saw Zhao Ji seated behind a spacious desk, flipping through a document. Mr. Zhao, you wanted to see me. I stood at the doorway and asked cautiously. He looked up and gestured for me to sit down. You spoke very well in the meeting just now. I was taken aback, not expecting him to praise me directly. Thank you, Mr. Zhou. He closed the file and looked straight at me. However, debate alone isn't enough since you believe intangible cultural heritage has value. How do you plan to make it truly recognized by the market? I took a deep breath and answered earnestly. I want to launch a promotion plan called Intangible Cultural Heritage plus Modern Life. For example, integrating traditional embroidery into haute couture home design, or even combining it with tech products to help young people appreciate its charm. At the same time, we could set up offline workshops to invite the public to try it themselves, letting them understand the challenges artisans face. The more I spoke, the more engrossed I became. I even pulled out my phone to show him the data from my live streaming channel. You see, many people are actually interested in traditional culture. They just lack opportunities to engage with it. Zvoye listened quietly, his gaze lingering on my phone screen before slowly returning to my face. After a long pause, the corners of his lips lifted into a faint smile. Interesting. I froze. This was the first time he had shown such obvious appreciation toward me. You'll personally oversee this project. His slender fingers tapped lightly on the desk. Report directly to me. My heart jolted. Reporting directly to him. This means I've skipped several layers of management. President Zhou, this what? No confidence. He raised an eyebrow. I immediately shook my head. No, I'm confident. He nodded, his gaze profound. Then prove it to me. In the days that followed, I gradually became so busy I barely had time to catch my breath. The planning, design, and promotion of the Intangible Cultural Heritage Project each required my personal involvement. Often, I would leave home in the morning before, and then woke up and return at night after he had already fallen asleep. Zhaoji was an unexpectedly cooperative partner. On the surface, he appeared to be a cold and shrewd businessman. Yet, whenever the topic of preserving and passing down traditional culture arose, a rare spark of passion would flicker in his eyes. This proposal won't work. In the conference room, he pushed the plan back to me, his slender finger tapping on a specific figure. The budget is too high and the return cycle is too long. Just as I was about to explain, he abruptly shifted gears. But the direction is right for traditional craftsmanship to survive. It can't rely solely on nostalgia to pay the bills. With that, he picked up a pen and quickly wrote down a string of numbers on the paper. Go to the finance department and tell them I approved it. Also, you'll accompany me to the International Cultural Exchange next month. I looked up in surprise, meeting his deep gaze. Thank you, Mr. Zhou, I said softly. He gave a slight nod, and as he stood to leave, his sleeve brushed against my notebook, carrying a faint scent of sandalwood. As the project progressed, my interactions with Zhao Ji became increasingly frequent. During every work report, he could always pinpoint the issues with precision. When encountering difficulties, he would quietly help clear the obstacles for me. Under his sustainable management, the group's lifespan was extended indefinitely. Being too busy, I had less and less time to spend within. So, I decided to apply for a small office to bring my child along. Grandpa Zhou, upon hearing that I needed to bring my child to work, immediately arranged a private office with a rest area for me without hesitation. He even had child-sized desks, chairs, and a toy shelf specially set up, with little in and coming to the company. This old man finally has a playmate, Grandpa Zhou said cheerfully, on the first day of bringing an in to work. I was so nervous that my palms were sweating. I was afraid the little one might not adjust well or disturb my colleagues. But Anen was surprisingly well behaved. He sat quietly at the small table drawing, occasionally looking up at me. Seeing that I was busy, he would lower his head and continue doodling. During the lunch break, Grandpa Zhao came over excitedly. bringing a big box of building blocks. And then, how about building a castle with Grandpa? An old man and a little child sat on the carpet, playing with great delight. Their laughter passed through the glass door, drawing curious glances from passing colleagues. I took the opportunity to handle a few documents, and the efficiency was remarkably high. And so the days of bringing my child to work gradually settled into a routine and then quickly became the office favorite. The ladies from the marketing department often brought homemade snacks to see him. The tech guys taught him programming mini games. Even the usually stern HR director couldn't help but smile when she saw an in. To avoid disturbing my colleagues, I established strict rules. He could only move around in the office and his designated rest area. Wasn't allowed to wander off and absolutely couldn't interrupt others' work. That afternoon, I was rushing to complete an urgent proposal, fully focused on the computer screen. Mommy, I need to go to the bathroom, and then tugged at my sleeve. Okay, Mommy will take you, I said without looking up. Just 5 more minutes. Almost done. 5 minutes later, I saved the file and looked up, but Ainin was nowhere to be seen. And then I called out, but there was no response. My heart sank suddenly, and I hurriedly got up to search. The lounge, the restroom, the children's area, all the places he might have gone were empty. Have you seen in? I anxiously asked every colleague I encountered, but all I got were shakes of the head. Cold sweat trickled down my back as terrifying thoughts flashed through my mind. I rushed into the security room and demanded to see the surveillance footage. The footage showed that 20 minutes earlier, Anen had opened the office door herself, peeked around cautiously for a while, and then toddled out on her short little legs. My heart nearly stopped until I saw the next segment of the footage, and then wandering down the hallway, happened to run into Zhaoji as he was leaving the meeting room. Zhaoji rarely comes to this floor. Usually, I go to his office to report work. He hasn't met Anen yet, so there shouldn't be any interaction between them. But the tall man crouched down, seemingly asking him something, and then carried him away. I was a bit confused. Why would President Zhao taken away? Following the surveillance footage, I headed straight to the 32nd floor, CEO's office. The door was slightly ajar, from which came in giggling and Zhaoji's deep voice. That's not how you put it together. You need to turn it this way. I gently pushed the door open, and the scene before me froze me in place. The usually meticulous president Shou had his suit jacket casually draped over the back of a chair, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, sitting on the carpet with an in building blocks. His stern profile softened considerably, even carrying a rare hint of a smile, and then completely shedding her usual restraint. Had flushed cheeks and was excitedly pointing at the blueprint while saying something. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a glow on them and outlining a scene so heartwarming it seemed almost surreal, and then I couldn't help but call out. Both of them looked up at the same time and then cheered and rushed over. Mommy, Uncle Zhao taught me how to build a big castle. Zhao stood up. A flicker of something dark crossed his face when he saw me, but it quickly returned to its usual detached expression. Only a few colorful specks of building blocks clung to his shirt, looking somewhat out of place. Is this your child? He asked, his voice devoid of emotion. I held An's hand and said, Yes. How old is she? She's 2.5. I was a bit puzzled. Zhaoji never usually inquired about employees' personal matters. What about the child's father? I pursed my lips, not wanting to stir up too much gossip, and simply replied, He's gone. His eyes flickered slightly, but he didn't press further. Instead, he bent down to pick up the scattered building blocks on the floor, his movement surprisingly gentle, and then seemed to like him a lot. Even as I carried her away, she kept looking back at him with reluctance in her eyes. In the days that followed, Zhaoji's visits to our office noticeably increased. Sometimes it's imported fruits, sometimes educational toys. He seems to particularly like, and sometimes staying for half a day. I don't understand why he does this, but I try not to be affected by him and focus on my own work. That afternoon, as I was organizing embroidery threads, the office door suddenly swung open. Grandpa Zhao walked in excitedly, only to see Zhao Ji holding an in. Yi, you've met an Inu. Grandpa Zhao happily approached. I've been wanting to show you this child. I was stunned for a long time when I first saw him. As he spoke, Grandpa Zhao took out his phone, opened the photo album, and pointed it to me. Look, this is Ji Bai when he was 3 years old. Doesn't he look like an in? My gaze fell on the yellowed photo, and my breath caught. The little boy in the photo was wearing a sailor collar shirt with chubby cheeks and large, grape-like black eyes. Even the slight upward curve of his lips was exactly the same as Annen's. If not for the vintage feel of the photo and the fact that Annen had never worn such clothes, I would have sworn it was Annen himself. This really does look like him, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Right, Grandpa Zhao said proudly, the first time I saw Annen. He looked so familiar. It's just like Ji when he was little, he said meaningfully, casting a glance at Zhou Ji. Since you like Annen so much, why not get married and have a child of your own to play with? Zhaoji remained silent, only lifting an entire, making the little one giggle with delight. Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing them in its glow. Two faces, one large and one small, pressed close together. They shared the same eyes, the same contours. Even the slight droop at the corners when they smiled was identical. My heart suddenly raced as a terrifying thought surfaced in my mind. That night's banquet, since Genjo attended. Could Zhou Ji also be there? Could he be the man from back then? Memories flooded in like a tide before transmigrating into the book. I had a very alluring dream. In the dream, it was a dark room, the man's rough movements, his scorching breath, and that angry whisper. Is this the result you wanted? At the time, I thought it was just an absurd dream, but now I wonder, could it have been a brief moment when I crossed over while the original host was experiencing that incident? My hands unconsciously tightened their grip on the hem of my clothes. Grandpa Zhao was still chattering away about marriage, but Zhou Ji suddenly looked up, his gaze fixed directly on me. Those deep eyes seemed capable of seeing through all my thoughts. I hurriedly lowered my head to organize the documents, not daring to meet his gaze. After Grandpa Zhao left, only the three of us remained in the office and then was slumped over Zheoji's shoulder, already half asleep. I'll take him to the restroom, I said softly, reaching out to take the child. Zhaoji, however, slightly turned away to avoid my hands. I'll do it, his arms held in and steadily, his movements incredibly gentle, as if cradling some precious treasure. I stood by the window, looking at my reflection in the glass, my face as pale as paper. If Shoji was really Annen's father, what are you thinking about? A deep voice suddenly sounded behind me, startling me as I turned around. I nearly bumped into his chest. Zhaoji had returned at some point and was now looking down at me from above, standing so close that I could catch the faint scent of sandalwood on him. Nothing. I took a step back, forcing myself to stay composed. Thank you for taking care of Annen. His eyes flickered slightly. He's very well behaved. Silence stretched between us, summoning my courage. I looked up. Mr. Zhao, did you attend the Gu family's charity gala 2 years ago? His gaze suddenly turned cold. Why ask that? Just asking casually. I lower my head, my heart pounding like a drum. He stared at me for a few seconds, his eyes dark and unreadable. Sunon Juan. His voice was low and dangerous. What if I said I have been there? I held in and in my arms, still pondering the events of that day. Zheoji's response was ambiguous, neither admitting nor denying it, but my intuition grew stronger. He was definitely In's. Yet he didn't seem in a hurry to confirm this, only occasionally coming over to play with and bringing him various toys and picture books. Occasionally, he would casually bring me small gifts, a silk scarf, a box of tea, or even a limited edition set of embroidery needles. Seeing him like this, I simply let him be. We never married, and now that I have a stable income and financial independence, he couldn't easily gain custody of it if all he wanted was to spend time with Annen. I wouldn't stop him. That day, Zhao Ji took a group of company employees to the countryside for a charity event. As an ambassador for traditional craftsmanship, I was also part of the group. We arrived at a primary school in a remote mountain village. In the shabby classroom, the children gathered around us curiously, their eyes sparkling with a thirst for knowledge. Teacher, how is this flower embroidered? A little girl with pigtails asked me timidly. I crouched down and took out the embroidery hoop and needlework I always carried with me. Come, let me teach you. The little girl had slender fingers and learned exceptionally fast. In just half an hour, she could already embroider a small flower that looked quite decent. Teacher, I want to be an embroiderer when I grow up. She looked up with her small face, her eyes brimming with hope. My heart softened, and I taught her a few more simple stitches. Before I knew it, it was already late in the evening. By the time I packed up and left the classroom, the campus was completely empty, and the other staff had already left by bus. Only a black SUV was parked not far away. Its window rolled down to reveal G's sharply defined profile. Get in, he said curtly. I had just fastened my seat belt when the sky suddenly lit up with lightning and thunder and raindrops as big as beans pounded against the windshield. The rain came so suddenly, I muttered under my breath. Zhaoji turned on the wipers, his brows slightly furrowed. The mountain road won't be easy to navigate. Just as the car left the village entrance, an old man wearing a straw raincoat stopped us. Don't go any further. The old man banged on the car window and shouted, There's a landslide ahead. It's dangerous. Zhaoji rolled down the window and the rain immediately soaked his sleeve. Mr. Zhou, the village chief says, you should stay the night first. The old man pointed to a house not far away. That's the village chief's home. Everything's been arranged. We ran through the rain into the village chief's house. The simple farmhouse courtyard was neatly kept and steaming hot dishes were laid out in the main room. The village chief's family warmly welcomed us. Mr. Zhao, we happen to have one spare room left. You can stay there for now. Zhaoji immediately said, only one room. Then I can stay at another villager's place. The village chief looked at us in confusion. Why would a married couple want to stay separately? I quickly explained. You've misunderstood. We're not. I saw your phone wallpapers. The village chief interrupted with a chuckle. It's a very cute little baby, and the baby looks just like your husband. Isn't it your child? I froze, instinctively turning to look at G. He was pulling out his phone to check messages, and on the screen was clearly a photo of the little one wearing a bare onesie beaming at the camera with a radiant smile. My heart skipped a beat. It turns out he had also said, and as his wallpaper, Zhaoji put away his phone and politely thanked the village chief. Then we'll trouble you. The room arranged for us by the village chief was simple but very tidy. There was a double bed, a small wardrobe, and a desk by the window. Ji took a blanket from the closet and without a word started making a bed on the floor. The entire time he was proper and respectful, showing not the slightest hint of impropriety. Seeing this, I stopped being overly sensitive. After a quick wash, I prepared to rest. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking came from the door. The village chief's wife came in carrying a stack of clothes. I notice your clothes are all wet. These are my son's old clothes. If you don't mind, you can wear them for the night. I gratefully accepted them, though the clothes were a bit old. They were washed clean and carried the scent of sunlight. When G came out of the bathroom after changing, I almost didn't recognize him. He stood by the window in a simple white t-shirt, tall and long-legged, drying his hair when he turned his face slightly. The dim yellow light cast a soft glow over his deep-set eyes and brows. Those usually sharp phoenix eyes were now half lowered, their thick lashes casting shadows beneath them, softening the usual sharpness. He looked like a senior from a university campus, completely devoid of the decisive and formidable aura he carried in the business world. What's wrong? He noticed my gaze. Nothing. I averted my gaze. It's just the first time I've seen you dressed so casually. He chuckled softly and walked over to sit by the futon. No need to be so formal and private. Just call me by my name. At this moment, Zhaoji felt both unfamiliar and familiar, lying in bed, listening to his steady breathing. My thoughts were in turmoil. The rain showed no sign of stopping with bean-sized droplets pounding on the roof tiles. creating a continuous crackling sound. We've been stranded in this small mountain village for 3 days now. The phone signal comes and goes, leaving us almost completely cut off from the outside world these past few days. I've seen another side of Zhao Ji. He would squat earnestly in front of the stove, learning to tend the fire, refusing to give up even when the smoke made him cough relentlessly. He would patiently teach the village children to read, his gentle demeanor a stark contrast to the decisive CEO in the business world. He even climbed onto a leaky roof without hesitation to help repair it for an elderly villager living alone. The village loudspeaker kept broadcasting flood prevention notices on loop, while the distant sound of rushing water could faintly be heard. Aunt Guy deftly added another bundle of firewood to the stove, the flames casting light on her wrinkled face. If this rain keeps up, the riverbank might not hold. I was just adding noodles to the pot when her words made my heart tighten. Is it that bad? Sure is. Aunt Gay sighed. 2 years ago, when the flood hit, it washed away several houses. As they were speaking, the sound of hurried footsteps came from the courtyard. Zhao Ji and the village chief rushed in, completely drenched, their pants kicked with mud. The situation at the dam isn't good. Zhao Ji took off his rain hat, water droplets falling from his hair. We need to organize the villagers to reinforce it. His white t-shirt clung wetly to his body, outlining his firm muscle lines. I quickly handed him a dry towel. Dry off first. Don't catch a cold. His fingertips brushed against the back of my hand as he took the towel, carrying the coolness of the rain. Thank you, he said softly, his gaze lingering on my cheeks, flushed red from the stove's heat. Aunt Gay brought over a steaming bowl of ginger soup. Drink some to warm yourself up. Zhaoji took the bowl, then suddenly noticed me dropping noodles into the boiling pot. He frowned slightly. Be careful. It's hot. No sooner had the words left his mouth than I accidentally splashed scalding water onto my wrist, instantly turning it red. I gasped sharply in pain. Go-ji rushed over almost instantly, grabbing my wrist and pulling it to the water vat, scooping up a ladle of cold water to pour over it. How could you be so careless? His voice was low, carrying a tone of reproach, yet laced with concern. The cold water stream washed over my scorching skin as his slender fingers gently cradled my wrist, moving with utmost care as if handling something fragile. The village chief chuckled beside us, teasing, Mr. Zhao, are you worried about your wife? You rushed over without even putting down your tools. Only then did I notice Zhou Ji still clutching a shovel in his other hand, and my cheeks instantly burned with embarrassment. Zhou Ji's ears turned slightly red, but he didn't refute the village chief's words. Instead, he focused on examining my wound. It's not too bad. Not serious. Aunt Gay, do you have any burn ointment? Aunt Gay handed over the ointment, and Zhaoji took it, gently applying it to my wrist. His fingertips were slightly calloused, yet his touch was exceptionally gentle. The cool sensation of the ointment mixed with the warmth of his fingers made my heartbeat quicken involuntarily. All done, he said, releasing my hand, his voice slightly. Be more careful next time. I lowered my head and responded, not daring to look at him. The room fell silent for a moment, leaving only the crackling sound of firewood burning in the stove. The village chief looked at me, then at Joji, and suddenly burst into laughter. Youth is wonderful. And Gay also smiled faintly, adding a handful of greens to the pot. All right, let's eat quickly. We still have to go guard the embankment after dinner. After dinner, the rain eased slightly, but the water level continued to rise. Zhao Ji and the young men from the village took turns keeping watch on the embankment. I followed Aunt Guer and the other women in filling sandbags, ready to reinforce the flood defenses at any moment. In the early hours of the morning, urgent whistle sounds suddenly came from the distance. Oh no! Aunt Gui's face changed color. Something must have happened. We ran to the river in the rain, only to see that a section of the embankment had been breached by the raging waters. Zhao Ji and a few villagers were desperately piling sandbags at the breach, but the current was too strong. The sandbags they had just placed were instantly swept away. This won't work. Zhaoji wiped the rain from his face and shouted, "Someone needs to go down and drive in the stakes." The village chief stomped his feet anxiously. "It's too dangerous. The current is so strong. You'll be swept away if you go down there." Zoji didn't hesitate. He grabbed a thick hemp rope and began tying it around his waist. "I'm going down." "No." I rushed forward and grabbed his arm. "It's too dangerous." He turned to look at me, rain water dripping from his lashes. But his gaze was unusually resolute. "Someone has to go down, or the entire village will be flooded." I opened my mouth, but couldn't find a reason to refute him, so I could only grip his sleeve tightly. He gently pried my fingers open. "Don't worry, I'm a strong swimmer, with everyone's help." Zhaoji, with a rope tied around his waist and a wooden stake in hand, stepped into the rushing river one step at a time. The water rose past his knees, then his waist, and finally reached his chest. Each step was agonizingly difficult, yet he moved forward steadily without faltering. My heart leaped into my throat, and I stared unblinkingly at his retreating figure. "Watch out!" someone suddenly shouted. A swift current surged forward, causing Zhao Ji to stagger and nearly lose his balance. Instinctively, I rushed forward only to be yanked back by Aunt Gay. "Don't make trouble," Aunt Gay said sharply. Zhao Ji steadied himself and continued forward. Finally, he reached the designated spot and began driving the wooden stake into the riverbed with all his might. One strike, two strikes, the stake gradually sank deeper and his movements became increasingly laborious. After an unknown amount of time, he finally raised his thumb, signaling success. The villagers immediately tightened the ropes and pulled him back to the shore. Zhaoji was soaked to the bone, his lips pale from the cold, yet he still remembered the follow-up work. Quickly, pile up the sandbags." I couldn't hold back any longer and rushed forward, wrapping him in a dry towel. "Stop talking. Go change your clothes first." He gave a weak smile and let me support him as we walked back. Back at the village chief's house, I frantically rummaged for dry clothes and handed them to him. "Hurry and change. Don't catch a cold." He took the clothes, but didn't move immediately, instead staring intently at me. "Just now you were really worried about me." I turned my face away, not daring to meet his gaze. Who's worried about you? I just didn't want you to get hurt and leave me unpaid." A low chuckle reached my ears. "You say one thing but mean another." When I turned back, he had already entered the bathroom. The sound of running water filled the air as I sat on the edge of the bed, my heartbeat still unsteady. The experiences of this night showed me a completely different Joji by brave, responsible, gentle, a stark contrast to the cold and shrewd CEO in the business world. The bathroom door opened and Joji stepped out in dry clothes, his hair still dripping. I quickly stood up. "Let me help you dry your hair." I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. The gesture felt far too intimate. He naturally sat on the edge of the bed and handed me the towel. "Sorry to trouble you." I stood behind him, carefully drying his damp hair. His hair was softer than I had imagined, carrying a faint scent of shampoo. Through the strands, I could see a small black mole on the back of his neck, flickering faintly with each breath. "Soon-Won," he suddenly spoke, his voice very soft. "HM." He paused. "Can I pursue you?" My hand froze abruptly, the towel falling to the floor. After a long while, I shook my head. Zoji's shoulders visibly stiffened for a moment. He lowered his head slightly, his voice carrying a trace of dejection I'd never heard before. "Is that not allowed?" The sound of rain outside the window suddenly grew clearer, tapping against the roof tiles like countless tiny drum beats. "It's not that I can't," I murmured softly, my fingers unconsciously tightening around the hem of my clothes. "It's that I don't need to." He suddenly looked up, his always inscrutable eyes now clearly reflecting my image. "I want to be with you." As I spoke those words, I felt something heavy quietly slip away from my chest. Zaoji's expression froze for a moment. Then his eyes lit up like ignited stars, suddenly brightening. His atoms apple-bobbed, and uncharacteristically, his eyes grew slightly moist. The next second, he pulled me tightly into his embrace. His embrace was warmer than expected, carrying a faint scent of pine and the freshness of rain. I pressed against his chest, hearing his rapid and powerful heartbeat. Thump, 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 as if it were about to burst through his rib cage. I closed my eyes, feeling the strength of his arms, so tight yet so careful, as if holding fragile treasure. At this moment, I suddenly realized how wonderful it feels to be cherished by someone like this. After all this time, I am loved by more and more people. There's Grandma Wan, who treats me as her own. Aunt Jang, who dotes on me like a daughter. Grandpa Zhao, who's always cheerful little and who loves me unconditionally. And this man before me. I am no longer the helpless Soon one who first arrived in this world in the sunrise and sunset of Qingshan village in the meticulous embroidery, stitch by stitch, and with an ANS innocent smiles. I found my true self after getting together. Zhaoji treated me better and better. The Intangible Cultural Heritage Inheritance Project is progressing smoothly under my leadership. Not only did he approve the full budget, but he also personally facilitated connections, helping me establish contacts with numerous museums and cultural institutions, both domestically and internationally. It was the opening day of the National Intangible Cultural Heritage Festival, and as a representative inheritor of embroidery craftsmanship, I took the stage to deliver a speech under the spotlight. I saw Zhao Ji in the front row holding an in. The little one was dressed in a tiny suit, sitting upright and looking absolutely adorable. Zhao Ji held an unsteadily with one hand while recording a video with the other. His usually stern and cold features were now softened beyond belief, his eyes brimming with pride after the speech ended. Thunderous applause erupted and suddenly broke free from Zhaoji's hand and shouted in her childish voice, "Mommy is the best." The room immediately erupted with warm laughter. We were getting along more and more harmoniously, but we never found the right opportunity to bring up what happened that night again on this weekend. Zhao Ji drove and me to the Zhao family's old residence to visit Grandpa Zhao throughout the journey, and then excitedly pressed against the car window, chattering nonstop while pointing at the scenery along the roadside. Grandpa's house has big fishies, and then waved her arms excitedly. Grandpa showed me last time. Zhao Ji glanced at me through the rear view mirror, the corners of his lips curling slightly. The old man keeps dozens of koi in the garden pond, and then couldn't tear herself away last time. The Zhao family's ancestral home is nestled halfway up the mountain on the outskirts of the city, a quaint and elegant Chinese-style courtyard. As soon as we got out of the car, Grandpa Zhao came out to greet us, scooping up En, who rushed toward him. His smile, so wide his eyes nearly disappeared. "Oh, my dear little one, I've missed you so much." Grandpa, seeing Zhao Ji and me holding hands. Grandpa Zhao's eyes lit up. "You too are." Zhou tightened his grip on my hand. "Grandpa, when I are together now." Grandpa Zhao was so delighted he kept slapping his thighs. "Wonderful, wonderful. I always said you two were a perfect match." As soon as I stepped into the living room, I froze. Genjo and Such Ching were sitting on the sofa drinking tea. This was the first time I had seen the female lead since arriving in this world. Suching was even more radiantly beautiful than described in the book. A light purple dress accentuated her snow-white skin, and when she smiled, the slight droop at the corners of her eyes made her appear especially warm and approachable. "Sister," Suching stood up proactively. "Long time no see." I replied somewhat awkwardly, "Long time no see." To my surprise, Suching's attitude was natural and friendly, showing none of the hostility described in the book. She even praised my embroidery work, saying she had seen my piece, Rebirth, at the museum, and was deeply moved by it. Only then did Grandpa Zhao realize I was the eyes of the Su group, stroking his beard in astonishment. "Su Yan is your father," I nodded, feeling a hint of bitterness in my heart. Since transmigrating into this world, I had never met this so-called father. At lunch, Suching happened to sit next to me. She carried herself with grace, spoke elegantly, and occasionally served Genjo food. Their interactions were natural and sweet, just as the book described. a picture of perfect affection, taking advantage of the other's chatting. Suching suddenly whispered to me, "Sis, Dad misses you a lot." My chopsticks paused midair. "What?" "He often secretly reads your news and keeps all your interviews," Suching said softly. "He watched your TV interview over a dozen times." Last time, my heart suddenly clenched. This is completely different from the Su Yanning. I remember that cold and indifferent father who would often scold the original host harshly. How could he? He can't bring himself to reach out to you directly. Suching continued. "But every time I go back, he asks about how you're doing." She paused. "After all, you're the only blood relative he has left in this world. So, in places I didn't know about, he's been quietly keeping an eye on me all along." After dinner, while everyone else was chatting in the living room, I stepped out alone into the courtyard for some fresh air. The early summer breeze carried the fragrance of flowers, dispelling some of the lingering gloom. Sister Suching's voice came from behind me. She handed me a cup of floral tea and sat down on the stone bench beside me. "I've actually always wanted to thank you in person," Suching said, gazing at the distant artificial hill and flowing water. "If it weren't for that glass of juice you gave me, I might never have truly understood Shenha's feelings." My heart skipped a beat. That glass of juice, the one the original owner had intended to drug her with, but ended up drinking herself by mistake that night, was at Zhou finally asking the question I had been too afraid to voice. My voice trembled slightly. Suching blinked. "Yeah, didn't you know?" She looked puzzled. "I thought you two had been together since then." My mind went completely blank, though I had suspected it. Hearing the confirmation still made my heart race. Uncle had just returned from abroad and was invited by Shenha to attend the banquet. Suching recalled. He drank quite a bit and left early to rest in the guest room. Later, she smiled awkwardly. Anyway, the next day he was furious, thinking someone had set him up after Suching left. I sat alone in the courtyard, lost in thought. So, it really was Zhaoji by that night. So, I truly experienced all of that firsthand. Familiar footsteps approached from behind, and Zhaoji wrapped his arms around me from the back, resting his chin lightly on my shoulder. Finished talking. His breath brushed past my ear. I turned around and met his gaze directly. "It was you that night." This wasn't a question. Zhaoji's body visibly stiffened for a moment before he tightened his arms around me, burying his face in the crook of my neck and murmuring in a muffled voice, "I'm sorry. I thought you didn't want to recall that night, and I was rather rough at the time." His voice was full of guilt. "I was afraid you'd mind." I kept his face in my hands. "Didn't you say something like, 'Isn't this the result you wanted?'" Zhaoji nodded, a flicker of pain flashing through his eyes. "I thought you had deliberately drugged me to get close. So when we met again at the company later," he let out a bitter laugh. "I was such a jerk, so that's how it was. No wonder he was initially so hostile towards me. No wonder he always looked at me with such complicated emotions." I held him tightly, burying my face in his chest. "I'm glad it's you." Zoji's body stiffened for a moment before embracing me even more tightly in return. The sound of his heartbeat came through his chest fast and heavy Nuanu, his voice choked slightly. "Thank you for giving me this chance to make amends to be there for In as she grows up encouraged by Zhaoji." I finally decided to go home for a visit. As the car slowly entered the gates of the Su family villa, my palms were already damp with a thin layer of sweat. Zoji gently held my trembling hand and gave it a reassuring squeeze. "Don't be afraid. I'm here with you," pushing open that familiar yet unfamiliar door. The conversation in the living room came to an abrupt halt. My father, Su Yanchen, was sitting on the sofa, a cup of tea in his hand. The moment he saw me, his fingers visibly tightened, causing the tea in the cup to tremble slightly. I instinctively felt like crying. He was just in his early 50s, yet his hair was already completely white, and the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes were much deeper than I remembered. It was as if all his vitality had been drained from him. "You still remember to come back." He set down his teacup, his voice cold, but his gaze remained fixed on me. as if trying to take in every change in me over the years. Sachin mother immediately stood up to smooth things over. It's good that Nan Wan is back. It's good that you're back. Come sit down. I'll have the kitchen prepare a few more dishes. She warmly took my hand and led me toward the dining room. Today we specially made your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs and steamed sea bass. During the meal, Suking's mother kept the atmosphere lively, and Zhaoji chimed in appropriately. Only Su Yayan and I ate in silence, occasionally exchanging glances before quickly looking away. After finishing the meal, he put down his chopsticks. Muan Wan, come to the study. The study was just as before, with all kinds of books neatly arranged on the mahogany bookshelves, and the large solid wood desk was spotless. He took a file folder from the drawer and handed it to me. Take a look. I opened the file folder. Inside was a share transfer agreement. 25% of the Su Group's shares. I looked up in shock. To think he originally only held 40% himself. This was nearly the majority of his personal fortune. I'm getting old. He cut me off, walking to the window with his back to me. You become so capable now. I feel at ease handing the company over to you. His voice was slightly after all these years, focused on business. It's time to enjoy some peace. I didn't take the document, but clutched it tightly, the paper making a faint rustling sound in my hand. After a long silence, I finally asked the question that had haunted the original owner of this body for a lifetime. If given a chance to start over, would you be willing to spend more time with me? The study was eerily quiet, with only the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. Breaking the silence, my father's figure looked particularly lonely in the sunlight, his shoulders trembling slightly, yet he never answered. I took a deep breath and gently placed the contract on the table. I'll leave first, just as my hand touched the doorknob. A choked "I do" suddenly came from behind me. I turned around abruptly to see my father already in tears. This man who dominated the business world was now crying like a child. Throughout my life, the one I've wronged the most is you. His voice was broken. If given another chance, I would never leave you to grow up alone. My tears finally overflowed through my blurred vision. I seemed to see the original Sun's one standing beside her father, gently embracing him. Sunun Huan, do you see it now, whether you choose to forgive him or not? I wish you happiness and smooth sailing in your next life, with loving parents by your side. Zhaoji was waiting for me downstairs, seeing me come down with re-ened eyes. He immediately stepped forward and pulled me into his embrace. All settled, he asked softly. I nodded and looked up at Su Yenqing, standing at the top of the stairs. He was looking at us, his eyes filled with relief and blessings. I'll bring in to see you in a few days, I mustered the courage to say, but I still couldn't bring myself to call him Dad. I couldn't forgive him on behalf of the original owner. Su Yan's eyes instantly lit up, and he nodded repeatedly. Good, good. I'll have someone tidy up the children's room. On the way back, I leaned against the car window, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. Zhaoji held the steering wheel with one hand and tightly grasped mine with the other. Wan, let's get married, he suddenly said. I turned to look at him. His profile appeared especially gentle under the glow of the street lights. Okay, I replied softly. He froze for a moment, then broke into a smile, so straightforward. I had a whole speech prepared for the proposal. I laughed too. Save those words for later under the night sky. Our car headed home. There and was waiting for us along with warm lights and the future we were weaving together. And this time, none of us will be lonely anymore. Su Yuan's extra story. My name is Su Yuan, nickname Anen, and I'm 5.5 years old. I'm a mature and steady little boy. At least that's how Mom praises me. But Dad, that would be Mr. Zoji, who always tries to poke my face with his stubble. Clearly doesn't think so. Today, Dad mysteriously called me into his study, saying he wanted to teach me an essential skill for a real man. I rubbed my hands together excitedly, thinking he was going to teach me how to operate an excavator or shoot lasers like Ultraman, but he pulled out an embroidery needle. Dad looked serious. And then this is the adding flowers to brocade technique of Su embroidery, your mother's specialty. Now, Dad will teach you. Dad, do you have some misunderstanding about what it means to be a man? Dad, full of confidence. A real man can both earn money to support the family and embroider while taking care of the kids. I sighing. Dad, have you been brainwashed by mom? Dad pinching my cheek. This is called family harmony. Me struggling. Then can I poke the monster with a needle? Dad thinking for a second. Sure, but don't poke your sister. That evening, Mom caught Dad and me sneaking around in the study. She pushed the door open and saw Dad was teaching me embroidery, and I ended up wrapping all the thread around his head. Mom trying not to laugh. Zhao Ji, are you cosplaying as a mummy? Dad calmly. No, I'm cultivating in patience and focus. Me raising hand. Mom. Dad just got pricked by a needle and secretly yelped. Dad glaring at me. Little traitor. Mom. Smiling sweetly. Oh, so even President Joe has things he's not good at. Dad, defiantly. I was just testing the sharpness of the needle. Me adding insult to injury. And then you tested it on your own finger. In the end, Mom laughed so hard she couldn't straighten up. And Dad's embarrassing moments tally increased by 1. The next day, Little Grape, my sister, crawled over and grabbed Dad's embroidery, hoop in one swift motion. Dad nervously. Little Grape, you can't play with this, Little Grape. Grinning, giggle, and then smack. The embroidery hoop was sent flying with a slap from her, all the threads scattering. Me clapping. Well done, little sister. Now, Dad won't have to embroider anymore. Dad face palming. You too were sent by heaven to punish me, weren't you, Mom? Sipping tea while watching the drama. Mr. Show. Family harmony begins with parenting and embroidery. That evening, I had a serious negotiation with Dad. Dad, I think Ultraman is more powerful than an embroidery needle. Dad, raising an eyebrow. Oh, want to compare? Me pulling out a toy. Look, my Ultraman Tigga can glow. Dad calmly taking out a needle. My embroidery needle can make your mom laugh. Me pausing. That kind of makes sense. Mom blames Dad for bullying me again. Dad innocent. I'm teaching him life's philosophy. Me summarizing. So Ultraman fights monsters and embroidery needles. Cheer up, Mom. Dad, thumbs up. Smart. Mom, face palming. You too. Hopeless. Anand's little insight. Dad's embroidery needle equals Ultraman's ray beam. Both can make Mom laugh. Little sister is a demolition expert, but Dad doesn't dare scold her. A real man must know how to earn money, embroider, take care of kids, and even sweet talk his wife. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.